In this video, we will analyze some of the important recent highlights of Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy, which includes expanding geopolitical heft, strategic ties, assuming G20 presidency. India continued its diplomatic overdrive to expand ties with the US, the UK, Japan, France and the European Union in sync with a broad goal of increasing its geopolitical heft. India assumed the presidency of the powerful G20 grouping and demonstrated a steely resolve and statecraft in expanding its strategic influence, in reshaping the regional power balance in the face of China's increasingly aggressive behavior. Neutral approach to Ukraine-Russia conflict. India displayed a distinctively nuanced approach and pressed both Moscow and Kyiv to end the hostilities and find a solution to the problem through dialogue. At a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Uzbekistan's Samarkand on September 16, Prime Minister Narendra Modi nudged the Russian leader to end the conflict, saying, "Today's era is not of war," a formulation that found a mention in the declaration of the G20 summit in Bali. However, India abstained from voting in the United Nations on multiple resolutions condemning the Russian invasion, in reflection of its decades-old relationship with Moscow that covers a range of critical areas including defense and nuclear energy. In the midst of the war, India significantly enhanced its import of discounted Russian crude oil, prioritizing its energy requirement, and blunting the mounting pressure from Western countries to suspend the procurement. Thus, India showed the world on how to put the nation first on priorities. India assumed the presidency of the influential bloc G20. India assumed the presidency of G20 at its annual summit in Bali, with a promise of striving to ensure that the grouping acts as a global prime mover, to envision new ideas and accelerate collective action to deal with pressing challenges. India is taking charge of the G20 at a time when the world is simultaneously grappling with geopolitical tensions, economic slowdown, rising food and energy prices, and the long-term ill effects of the pandemic. Thus, the world wants India to lead. Dealing with China. In dealing with China against the backdrop of the eastern Ladakh border row, India maintained an assertive policy insisting that the relationship cannot be normal unless there is peace in the border areas. India also maintained a clear and firm policy in its diplomatic engagement with China, sending a clear message to Beijing that the return of peace and security along the frontier was paramount for overall development of ties. Indo-US ties is evolving. A major highlight of India's diplomatic engagement in 2022 was the expansion of strategic partnership with the US, including on key regional and global issues, like working jointly for a free and stable Indo-Pacific. The reflection of renewed vigor in the bilateral ties was on full display during talks between Modi and US President Joe Biden. In May, India joined a US-led initiative to set up an Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, to bind partner countries to achieve common goals. Ties with rest of the world. India's ties with Europe also witnessed an upswing in 2022, with both sides resuming negotiations for a comprehensive free trade agreement. In 2022, India and Australia also inked an economic cooperation and trade agreement that is expected to boost trade ties. In the overall policy framework, India continued its focus on the Indo-Pacific in the backdrop of growing global concerns over China's aggressive posturing in the region. This is the consolidation of India foreign policy in the year 2022. Thanks for watching. See on channel. Like and subscribe.